Welcome to the Simply for Life podcast. I'm Bethany Gettis, your host, a former diet and health nurse turned certified holistic nutritional consultant with over 16 years of experience in the health and wellness space. I'm here with Bruce Sweeney, Simply for Life founder and integrative nutritionist with over 30 years of expertise. Join us on the Simply for Life journey as we explore nutrition, hormonal balance, and well-being for a healthier, longer life. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thank you, Bethany, and good day, everybody.
Yeah, so I'm excited because this one today is going to be all about thriving through menopause, nourishing your body in perimenopausal years. So I'd love for you to kind of start on this, Bruce, with kind of the first question is, what do whole foods do in playing managing common symptoms that you find with women going through perimenopause and menopause?
Well, at all stage of them, I will tell you this, it's the catalyst. It's the number one thing. First and foremost, most women, I find that they will start really approaching us when they start having issues with hot flash, memory, foggy memory, the weight gain issues, like, okay, what's
Yeah.
going on? And, mental issue, anxiety, so forth, so on. But the reality, as far as food, we can help you manage your system. Food is a catalyst to manage. But why I emphasize that food is so important beyond that is because we're walking into a stage that the incidence of cardiovascular disease are going higher.
Yeah.
The incidence of cancer, chronic inflammation, autoimmune, the full meal deal is coming up. Now, beyond managing symptoms for menopause, because this should be the time for women to strive. This should be the best time in their life.
Yeah.
I was just talking early on to you, but my colleagues will tell you hands on that women in Europe are loving menopause, right? Here it's a full scale industry. We'll talk more about this later on. But the
Mhm.
reality is that whole food, a good diet, because if you don't have a good diet, there's one thing we're all guaranteed symptoms going to get worse,
Yeah, for sure.
and with some add ons. So, good nutrition is the foundation, not just to manage and strive during menopause and manage your symptoms, but there's so much more because we're going to pass menopause and we want to age gracefully. And it's
Mhm.
a great, great time to adapt a healthy lifestyle via nutrition.
I find it's almost like in the Western society, it's kind of like you're trying to avoid it. It kind of goes with the whole like everyone's trying to avoid the aging process as well. So, with that though, what are some nutritional pitfalls or considerations that women should kind of be cautious of during this stage of life? So, this can kind of go into things like environmental toxins, maybe smoking, drinking alcohol.
Yes. Well, I think the number one thing, and I've got to be careful I say this because Bethany, you know our team. I'm a women power. Women run Simply for Life here. I've
Mhm.
always said they're more efficient than us guys for sure. So I want to make sure I don't step on any toes, but I think women during menopause they get lost because they don't know what's going on, what's how to manage it, because we're so confused with so many different voices out there.
Yeah.
I also think that women needs to put the button on the pause. They just don't stop. Overconsume. They are meshing with the kids, curriculum activities. So then at night, now, because we've been told that drinking wine is good for you,
Mhm.
we will manage our stress with a glass of wine. And
Yep.
I remember when I started practicing 30 years ago, my women would say, Bruce, do you think in 2, 3 months there's a wedding coming up? I can have a glass of wine or two. Now it's like, I like to have my glass of wine every night. And really, what we're missing is that we're missing the ability to learn more about ourselves because there are tools that we can do with nutrition and lifestyle to really enhance our coping mechanisms, right?
Mhm.
Stress over time does have an impact on our body, a whole body system.
Yeah.
And then managing those pitfalls or stress or trying to relax with wine, yes, it works for an hour and a half until it has an impact on your sleep, has an
Right.
impact on your metabolic rate, so forth, so on. Pitfall also is that sometimes that we just don't take time to read our ingredient. You don't have to be a medical expert or a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And one suggestion I would say is that we're not looking enough because the industry has told us there's not a big difference with the nutritional value between food, fruits and vegetables that are full of pesticide or not. And nutritional value, there is a little difference. But the biggest impact, we know this, the science is there. And if there's something that you want to remember from this podcast, is the environmental working group. Look at the dirty dozens, because the dirty dozens are the top fruits and vegetables with the highest amounts of pesticide and herbicide. And both of them are endocrine disruptors.
Yeah.
They cause issues. I'm not even talking about cancer, cardiovascular disease, mental health. I'm talking your whole endocrine system. So you don't have necessarily to go all organic, but the dirty dozen could be one of the greatest things you're doing as far as eliminating pesticide and herbicide. And last thing is that start with one step at a time. Take time to put pause, because you and I right now, we could probably you could probably have 20 advice to give, and I have 20 advice, and then we're overwhelmed. So keep it simple. If you can really ground yourself to start one step at a time and then check the list, what's next, you will do far better, because Paris wasn't built overnight, right?
Right. It makes a lot of sense. I know when you're saying about the environmental toxins of the pesticides coming on our foods and it's an endocrine disruptor, that makes a lot of sense in terms of sort of menopausal health and everything. Interestingly enough, I also wanted to ask your perspective on plastics as well. That comes up a bit as well with
Thank you.
endocrine disruptor.
Yes.
And the other one I was going to ask you about in terms of menopause, going into now sort of foods. What are your thoughts on things like soy? Because a lot of people do ask about that in terms of like hormone replacement, kind of the way they eat. So I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, as far as for plastic, everybody's talk about refined processed food, but we need to look at plastic. Just lately, there was a research in the College of Cardiology about microplastic in our arteries. That's a great concern as
Oh,
we
wow.
speak. Microplastic, we're going to hear more and more, like in our sea salt, kosher salt, so forth, so on. But plastic and the amount of plastic we use to cook or store our food is becoming a problem. Drinking water also. Why? Because it mimics hormones. It dysregulate also. We've seen more and more, and there's so much research coming out giving us clarity of what we expect. That first of all, it affects your thyroid function. It affects on how we can convert more T4 into T3. So this is the active thyroid. No wonder we're gaining weight. It has an impact on women's ratio of estrogen and progesterone. So what's more important is your ratio. Plus, now we're seeing, because when we're storing, especially the things you want to be careful if you're using microwave with plastic, right? Is that when you use plastic for microwave, for example, I don't use any plastic for microwave. I use glass. But if I store food, I still use plastic, BPA free, but I don't put anything that's acidic into it, because the acid from tomatoes, so forth, so on, will leach out the plastic. And like you and I discussed before, if we have a cigarette today, no big deal. But if we smoke every day, it's the dose over time that cause issues.
Right.
And it's causing issue with my men too, right? Some of them
Yeah.
are starting to have female breasts, issues with their estrogen also. Bodies converting too much testosterone and estrogen just because of plastic. Plastic itself, we've never seen
Yeah.
that before, and it's huge now.
That's interesting. I've seen a lot of people, like we mentioned about the thyroid health. There's, I couldn't believe sort of in Canada, especially, I've noticed a lot of thyroid issues. And yeah, plastics is a huge one. I think just the way we sort of eat out of a box, containers, all that kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
think we're kind of moving away from that.
And
Um,
Bethany, we're not even talking about autoimmune. That's
yeah.
the whole issue itself. So plastic, I think it's time to be diligent. I think that we want to have a choice to move forward, because it's causing significant impact to our environment and of course to our health, right?
Yeah.
And there's an awareness out there, but I think we need to, I'd love to have everybody eliminating their Tupperware, but if you learn to use your Tupperware or talk to your consultant, they'll give you the guidelines. You can still store food, but I don't store anything acidic in my Tupperware. And at the same time, how to be diligent about eliminating your plastic too. What are we doing with it, right?
That's a good tip. I like that. So going into sort of the soy, what do you think in terms of the soy products?
Well, some of my colleagues would totally disagree
Mhm.
with me. I am a big fan of soy if it's organic.
Okay.
Problem is what we do with it. And the problem is North American is like there was a time like we've heard that in Okinawa, Japan, which is a blue zone, they consume soy, but they consume an ounce of it and it's in form of natto. It's fermented soy.
Okay.
Here we say, well, if we're going to go vegetarian, we're going to replace our chicken breast by the same amount of soy. The problem, too much soy, we know about phytoestrogen. We know that it can have an impact, but it takes a significant amount even from organic. The problem is what we've done, of course, us North American, we love to manipulate food and play God.
Yeah.
What we've done with soy products, soy milk, I'm not a big fan at all, unless you know exactly where it's coming from.
Right.
So it's tricky because I'm in the same position as there's good red meat, grass finish, and the one that's grain fed, I'm totally against, right?
Right.
So my opinion is very different. I think you can have soy in your diet as long as it's in small amount.
Okay.
If you look at soybeans, if you have the real one, Bethany, perfect combination of 30% protein, 30% fats, and 30%
Hmm.
carbohydrates, right? But is it the right type of fats or the right type of protein? That's a whole different questions. But it can be in. But if you have issue during menopause, an issue with your thyroid, it's best to avoid
Right.
until you talk to an expert. Yeah.
Right. So to me, it sounds like the whole soy thing is basically where the source is coming from.
Bingo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Okay. So in terms of other than that, with menopause and everything, what kind of supplements have you found with your clients to help with women during perimenopause, menopause, and how can this sort of complement the nutrition aspect?
Okay. There's a slew, and you and I can go on. I'm going to tell you my top favorite I use and why, right? First of all, assuming the client is eating very well, they're still showing some symptoms. Symptoms will go down when you're eating well, doing lifestyle change, but
Hmm.
they still have some because A, as we know, we get the nutrition, but the mom is stressed. Or
Right.
B, there's medication she's taking. Or C, there's a history. There's all these
Yeah.
things that can have an impact. So assuming that we're still getting some, like for hot flash and better sleep, I'm a big fan of Black Horse, and I'll tell you why. Because A, I get some friend of mine, they'll use chaseberry, so forth. It's just because did you know that most of the Black Horse we have in North America is native from Northern Ontario? So I just take pride to know that it comes from Canada. It's a Canadian
Hmm.
product. Pretty much all
Yeah.
the top brand out there. I'm a big fan of ashwagandha, but assuming that if the client is not overweight or obese or doesn't have fatty liver, because
Right.
lately we're starting some issue with liver enzyme and ashwagandha. Not on everybody. If not, I'm a big fan of it for hot flash, um, helping. It's an adaptogen to help balance or recalibrate your hormones. I think it does a fantastic job, and for sleep and anxiety, because I hear this.
Yeah.
And funny is, Benny, don't you agree with me? Is like sometimes our clients, without even going to exercise, and I'm a big fan of exercise, just the fact that they have better sleep and manage their anxiety and cortisol, they start losing weight again. Just
Yeah.
that itself, right?
Yeah.
Because cortisol gets you to gain weight at a very rapid rate. And there's magnesium, D3, but my superstar now, and I use it religiously for both men and women, is Tunga Ali. You got to make sure it comes from the right brand. Double wood only I use because they've carefully crafted this plant from Indonesia because they're known to contain a lot of toxins. They test, third-party tests, but Tonga Ali, not only it helps with your progesterone estrogen ratio, it's good for your luteinizing, falsizing, stimulating hormone. It's good for producing TSH, but beyond that, it regulates your cortisol level.
Hmm.
Plus, it helps with conversion of testosterone for both men and women into active, more bioavailable testosterone.
Hmm.
And some of the things I get with women, I've never been really comfortable to talk to my women about that, but I find you have a better opportunity is that Tonga Ali, vaginal dryness, and also their libido. Some women get confused. And, intimacy, it's not that you want to be 16 years again, but it happens also with men with andropause. I use this as the route to prevent them to take testosterone injection. Nothing against it, but if you can get more bioavailable testosterone, you feel better. You're more optimistic about day for both men and women. You preserve muscle tissue. You'll
Interesting.
hear me saying it's over. I'm calling muscle, skeletal muscle mass, the longevity organ now
Mhm.
because of everything we have to do to preserve it. So to me, it has the greatest benefits. And the biggest thing is that all the other supplements above, except magnesium, usually they report progress, unless it's placebo,
Mhm.
5, 6, 7 weeks. This, they report progress on 10 to 20 days.
Interesting.
And that's fast,
Is
right?
is that something that they would stay on for life, the Tonga Ally, or is that something that you do in sort of cycles?
Well, I'll be honest. All my levels are back to normal. I'm keeping it because I don't know. I'd love to have a better explanation that I get so many good benefits from it that I don't want to go off.
Right.
But I've always been a fan. I've told my clients that once that we retest and your blood levels are normal, well, let's taper off because the ideal way, and I'm going against what I'm suggesting for
Yeah.
myself, the ideal way is figure your body how it can cope
Right.
naturally. It's a natural state. Now, if you have a lot of stress still going on, you're eating good, maybe we'll take half. But the ideal and the goal is that you let your body figure things
Right.
out on its own, right? This is just there to help you to give you that boost.
So it's kind of more like a customized, like you're looking at like how the client's responding with using something like this, and if their levels are getting better, you kind of start to slowly move away and see how they do, how they're feeling, because it might just help them get there, right? And then all of a
Yes.
sudden, or they may want to stay on it for longer term. Something that popped up as you were talking, which I experience a lot with a lot of clients, is around the perimenopause, menopause time, I get a lot of complaints about midsection weight, so abdomen weight all the time. And a lot of stuff comes up with like insulin resistance. Can you talk a little bit about that and like what's going on sort of for especially those women during that time?
Yes. And that's why for me now, the one of the primary tests I ask for my clients to do with their physician is fasting insulin. You
Right.
know, HbA1c, of
Yeah.
course, the glucose are important, all the other markers. But high cortisol also is highly correlated with insulin resistance, right?
Yeah.
Having insulin resistant is just that we're not going to get technical about your beta cells and your pancreas, but it just means that let's just say that I'll give you an example. And the best example was given from a professor at university, Ben Dykman. Dykman.
Hmm.
So let's assume that you're hovering around on a scale for Canadian, you're at 11 with your insulin level right now, fasting insulin level.
That would be very
And
high.
it should be below 6, right? But
Yeah.
anything between 8, 9, 10, and 11, for every 100 grams of carbohydrate you're going to consume, you're going to be about 60% less efficient at using, once it's converted, that glucose. What does that mean is that you get 40%, it could be 45, could it be 35 on the average of glucose that you're now metabolizing using.
Right.
And let's talk about women hormone area around the waist.
Right.
You need to have fat. The Americans and the Canadians who have been saying you have to be lean, better you take this in the right context. You're in good shape, you're physical, but I truly believe that the ratio sweet spots for women should be 25, 28% body fat. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm looking at European standards. We have hormone storage area, but also we have these fat cells. What people don't understand is that when cortisol is high, you have insulin resistance. Even if your insulin's working overtime to transport glucose into the cell or convert it into muscle glycogen, it transports
Hmm.
many other things. Cortisol is kind of, let's take back glucose out. And in a short version is that we have these tiny fat cells. We eat good, they shrink, but they never go away.
Yeah.
But now, because we're our metabolic is dysfunctional, we say, hey, Bethany, don't worry about those glucose. I'll store them back in my fat cells. They start expanding. So as we age, we tend to start storing fat in different area. And most of the time it's around the waist
Mhm.
or don't know if I should say it, but I hear from women, I'm getting the pooch, the pooch or the back cleavage I hear all the time. I think
Mhm.
it's brutal women are using those names, but that's the best way they can describe themselves
Mhm.
sometimes. So definitely, definitely. And that's why dealing with a professional like you and I'm not upselling us,
Mm-hmm.
has a huge advantage because we can figure out, one thing I've always said is that when I was 20, my prime, my body was producing all kinds of hormone. So were you.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I could get away with more food because everything, my muscle was built primary on tons of hormone I was producing. And I was known as Mr. Buffet on the weekends because I was good during the weekend.
Yeah.
And in Moncton, we were at school, I would kill the buffets. We'd go to Chinese buffet to eat as much, and I can get away with that.
Yeah.
Now I don't produce as much hormone, so I have to rely more on nutrition and lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bruce of today, 33 years ago, was a whole different machine, right?
Yeah.
So things change. I also find that for me, when I travel, I love to eat a lot of fruits, and I don't want to scare anybody with fruits. And with that, I will eat more carbs because I just like carbs, but I really overdo them. And this time I injured myself and it was not active. I felt something different with my love and dose. They were there. I'm always comfortable with myself at my age. I'm okay. But just to say, I would have never felt that. I could have get away with 1 month of going off on eating as much healthy carbs as I want back in the days. I would never had any issues, even if I would not go to the gym, right?
Right.
So the game is just changing. And definitely for women, how we store fat is significantly changing, and it's all correlated to your hormone output.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. With Simply for Life, what kind of meal plans or customizations are you guys doing for perimenopause, menopause? And can you share some sort of success stories from clients that you've dealt with before?
Yes. Well, first of all, hope of second thing of this message after the environmental working group, but it should be the first thing that women allow themselves to put a pause.
Mm-hmm.
Their brain is a hamster wheel, it goes 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
And to allow themselves to say, okay, I'm bombarded with, first of all these charlatan snake oils out there, because we have a lot of snake oils.
Yes.
There's many very smart nutritionals out there too. But if you put that all together, at the end of the day, if you put a marble in here, you'll fill this up and you'll give up. You'll won't know which marble to choose.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you what most people I get from result. The difference is that when they come to see us, okay, we can personalize it exactly without them to have to guess. We will save them time and we will make sure they start feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
But at the holy grail of this is just we teach them how to eat good carbs. Remember, we were talking about this. The Europeans are not as disconnected with food as much as we are.
Yeah.
The industry has done an amazing job the last 40 years to get us confused. And now we say, F that, may as well eat whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get cancer now.
Right.
It's not true. And the benefit of coming Simply for Life is that we take time to listen so we can write you the right meal plan, and we keep tweaking until we find a solution. Now you start feeling better. You get more energy. One of the things that we all hear, Bethany, how many times we hear our wonderful ladies with menopause that they're fatigued, they're tired, fatigued, tired.
Mm-hmm.
They have more energy because they thought this was their new normal. And now they don't need to take 2 cups of coffee in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is that they're less foggy. We hear this all the time. But the biggest compliment I get that I love is that, Bruce, I appreciate now more than ever that I'm taking time for myself. I learned to put myself on priority list because the last 5 years, been taking care of my mom who's sick or my dad. And I don't want to be like them. And it's not about being negative, but they're also want to change their story because they know they're in that roller coaster. There's good chance they're going to
Mm-hmm.
have the same symptoms as their parents and probably 5 or 10 years earlier.
Right.
So there's a lot of things, but what I'm trying to say is that they feel awake now. They feel that they have a second lease on life.
Mm-hmm.
They feel better. And you've seen this, Bethany, how many times that now the chore has not changed, but it's less taxing.
Mm-hmm.
Spending time with the kids is not as taxing because they have vitality, they have the energy, they can move better, they don't have pain, they sleep better. So kids are not getting on their nerves, the husband is not getting on their nerves.
Yeah.
And I think I've saved a lot of relationship
Yeah.
because I'm not putting a number on this, but there's many times women are lost. So when they don't know what's happening with their hormones, they think it's the kids, they think it's work, they think it's the husband, but it's their endocrine system changing. And because we're so disconnected with our lifestyle,
Hmm.
that this is the primary case why it puts fuel on the symptoms, right?
Right.
And you get them to feel better. Husband is great after all. The kids are not that bad. Actually, I like my job. It says, well,
Yeah.
they get on my nerves, but I can tolerate more. So feeling good inside out. It's not about looking good outside. It's feeling good inside out. You'll look good outside once you feel good inside.
It's very true. Like I've heard this a lot from people where they come in and they're saying like, I've put my family and my kids first for so long, and they're kind
Uh-huh.
of looking to sort of like, I'm kind of falling apart myself, but everyone else is doing fine. And all of a sudden it's like you said, it's I'm constant fatigued. I'm drinking wine every night to, kind of get rid of the stress. And
THC,
yeah,
THC
and
now.
it's the stress factor, I think, but it does, like you said, it changes relationships too. It really helps, I think, once you start focusing on yourself and start working on yourself. What other kind of lifestyle factors do you think that women kind of going through that perimenopause, menopause stage really kind of need to look at and is crucial for them to consider?
Number one would be nutrition. I cannot say enough. I think it's the catalyst to everything. Jack LaLanne back in the days used to say exercise is king and nutrition is the queen.
Yeah,
Nutrition is the king now. We know this. You cannot out exercise a bad diet. We know this.
yeah,
There's tons of benefit of exercise. But I think the number one rule is to start with making yourself accountable. Because another thing too, a society as does, and why the benefit we do so well with a coach is that it has to get disconnect us in so many ways that we can't put ourselves on priority lists.
yeah.
And having a trusted person that you can count to. So start with nutrition first. I cannot say safe. Start with nutrition. Start implementing one thing after that. When nutrition, you'll feel better. You'll want to start exercising because you'll have more energy. With nutrition, you'll feel better because we can upregulate your hormones so you can sleep better. And then
Hmm.
when you start sleeping better, you have exercise and you have energy. You want to talk about a fountain of youth? Well, you're not going to live 150 years, but if you're gifted to live till 95 years, you're going to have 95 good years of quality
Yeah,
of life.
yeah, exactly. Well, with that, how can a consultation support and help these women? Because I feel like this is where the accountability comes in.
Yes. Well, I think the biggest thing that still it's underappreciated is when they come to visit us, right? We give them a sense of direction with clarity. Because should I have gluten? Should I go on ketogenic diet? I'm
Hmm.
here to tell you that of them work, but they have one purpose: it's weight loss. Because what dominates our industry is weight loss, right?
Yeah.
And they'll change the spin, and weight loss is very influential. All what they share combined, whether it's a ketogenic, low carb, vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean diet, is that once you start cutting junk food, refined carbohydrates, so forth, so on, you'll feel better.
Hmm.
But I will tell you this with a straight face. And if you dive into PubMed, real research, not TikTok research,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to do intermittent fasting, long duration during menopause,
Hmm.
affects your cortisol. You don't want to do ketogenic diet for too long. It will affect your thyroid and cortisol. You don't want to do also low carbohydrates. You just want to eat a whole food diet. And
Hmm.
what we're going to try to do, and we try to really align our clients back, is how their great grandparents used to eat, eating food the way nature and to be. And it blows my mind. It really blows my mind that, we've both went to school, you and I, we've educated myself. I'm still learning, and
Hmm.
we're teaching people just how to eat healthy. Like I was saying earlier on, I was talking to my friends in Europe, and their clients are not really disconnected. They just got busy with work and they're going back to the traditional diet. Here we have so many influencers that we don't know what it is to eat healthy anymore.
Right.
That's the benefit to come and see us. And we'll make it right on a piece of paper for you to choose your breakfast, your snack. It's not restriction, what you should have for supper. If you're going out to the mall, what's the best food to have? If you're exercising, if you're traveling. So in
Mhm.
essence, we can reintroduce you back how to eat healthy everywhere you go in the world at all stage of your life. That's what we do very well.
That's wonderful, and I think a lot of people would like that approach is non-restriction, because that's what I hear a lot from people is they feel so restricted when they start something, and they're kind of expecting that when they join a program, basically, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And yes, another one too. When I was thinking about the wine, I was thinking, and I lost my train of thought. Some things I do every now and then. Uh, Another culprit when it comes over wine is that we have accepted, the industry has created that for us. The word, well, I'm stressed, I'm just gonna have some food in moderation. You know, it just happens that we have moderation 3 times a day. And I've always said, think about this root. The root word moderation is as word bad as restriction, because it's a license to get away with everything.
Yeah,
Would you tell somebody, a drug addict, heroin addict, or a crack addict, say, just have some this weekend on moderation? It's not going to happen.
yeah, it's not
So
fair.
learn to look at what you use moderation for. And I think that itself is a light bulb moment, because it'll put a switch on. And if you're true to yourselves, like, okay, yeah, this is a mindful, this is a head game right there.
Mhm.
Moderation. Stay away from that word.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Bruce, today for all your
Thank you.
encouraging words. That's amazing. So, everybody, the links to any of the supplements that Bruce talked about today, it will be in the show notes, and a consultation as well will be in the show notes as well. Don't forget to share this episode with your family and friends, and stay tuned for more on the Simply for Life journey in good health.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, Bethany.